Okay, so it seems like recently there's been some kind of situations going on in the gacha space, which I kind of wanted to talk about because, again, this is getting pretty insane, right? And this has affected many gacha games, including one of the new ones, obviously being Stella Sora, which has been under a little bit of fire lately. But essentially, yeah, this is a tweet from Styx. There's a couple of tweets from Styx which we go through, essentially saying Stella Sora apologized publicly for a tiny animation that Korean players found offensive. You guessed it, a small moment where a new character has had their index finger too close to their thumb. And obviously, yeah, they are doing that symbol there. Apparently, that is offensive, and it is always something that we see in the gacha space coming up. And it's affected many different games, and some even, recently, like games like Nikke and also Wuthering Waves. They're saying the same motion Nikke had to apologize for and censor a few weeks back, and the same gesture Wuthering Waves had to completely cancel a partnership with over, I believe it was Zani, a few months back, which, yeah, obviously is absolutely insane. They say, I get the cultural relevance, the action might have some instances, but can we stop acting like this is some kind of conspiracy theory and start treating it for what it is? Just absurd. Human beings, video game characters, anime characters, we rest our fingers at that position all the time. It's not a personal attack and has no hidden agenda. I say when you try hard enough to find something, you'll likely find instances of it in everything. They're just reaching at this point, and the developers should not have to have apologized, nor should they have to internally discuss the matter with the development team, which is Chinese, by the way, not Korean. My god, there is genuinely no way this is real life. It's so dystopian that I almost don't want to believe that it's actually happening, but it is. This time, I stand by Stella Sora and do not think that they should have issued an apology. They should have completely ignored whoever was complaining and let the Chinese studio keep pushing out the characters they wanted without censorship or revisions, which, yeah, 100% true. Obviously this was the gift that they're talking about here. You can see they do the symbol for like 2 seconds, but you can see they're kind of like, I don't know what exactly they're planning on doing. I don't know what this character is. I don't know if they're pulling something back, which would make sense, but it doesn't seem like that. So again, it is a bit of a out there kind of position, but at the same time, I really don't think it is anything to do with a gesture that is supposed to be offensive to people, right? And to be honest, I don't even think it's that offensive. Now, sure, I can understand people are more offended by things than maybe I am, or maybe some other people, right? But again, I do think it is pretty ridiculous that there is all of this kind of like, backlash and, this internal kind of stuff that is going on now due to this. And obviously, yeah, it's not just Stella Sora, by the way, because obviously Styx then makes another follow-up post talking about it, saying another instance of the gesture was recently with Nikke. As they shift up, and Nikke was celebrating 1,000 days of being online with Anise, Neon, and Rappy Red Hood. Anise had her hand on her waist, and Rappy had her hand on the bed with her index finger, middle finger, and thumb all separated. A relatively normal hand gesture, which, yeah, 100% true. Obviously, if anything, I've been actually playing quite a lot of Nikke, more so than any other game at the moment. So again, if you want to see more content on Nikke, by the way, I can 100% do that because, again, I do love the game. And yeah, obviously, I do remember this happening. They say Korean players found this offensive, and thus Shift Up had to make a formal announcement, a subsequent apology followed by making an alteration to the artwork in question. So this resource was created by an overseas outsourcing company we're collaborating with. There was no hateful expression or intention during the production process. And yeah, I think that is essentially what it boiled down to. Obviously some people might be a little bit more concerned with the fact that, hey, Shift Up is a Korean company, right? So they should know that this is going to offend people and this is going to cause backlash, right? But it seems like it was, obviously given to an overseas company who obviously aren't as aware of this. So yeah, that's why they said it wasn't done by a Korean artist nor Korean studio. I don't know if there was any malintent involved, but it seems unlikely given the Korean studio who supervised the artwork being created after thorough investigation before publishing it, so absolutely no issue at all. Shift Up looked at the original work, said it looked great, and published it. The overseas artist and the studio themselves were both fine with the art. Once more, I understand the reasoning behind the gesture being offensive, but when you look for the gesture everywhere, in everything, you're bound to find it everywhere, and in everything. Unfortunately, this is also a very normal gesture around the world, and a normal resting position for many people. Just figured I'd showcase how prevalent this is becoming in gacha. This is one of many instances recently, and yeah, it seems like this is something that is becoming more and more common. As you can see here, here is the artwork that essentially people were angry about. Again, she is barely even doing it. She's stretching out her hand like that. Well, I don't know if you see my hand there. She's just stretching out her hand like that. You know, obviously, yeah, the symbol is like, you know, it's like that, you know, but she's like stretching out her hand like that, which it just is completely different. It's not the same thing. And then obviously they edited it to essentially have her arm a little bit or hand a little bit straighter, which I just think is a little bit more boring, you know, because again, it seems like they've been a little bit more dynamic with the positions, but now they've ended up changing it. The same with Anise as well. I think the Anise one is actually more egregious, to be honest, because she's literally like, is that even a thumb? That looks like a pinky, no? I don't know, because she's kind of got a hand on her waist there and her like fingers like stretched out like that, and they've just moved it in a bit more. Again, I don't know why this is the case. I don't know why people get so, you know, hung up on these really, really small details, because again, I can understand if they were purposely doing it or whatever, right? Sure. Even then, I do think you're a little bit fragile if you are getting so wound up by this, right? But you know, at the end of the day, they're not doing it on purpose. You can see there is no kind of, you know, malintent or whatever you want to call it, right? It is all just a lot of people making it up and wanting to be, I guess, angry at something for the sake of being angry at something. I assume that is the reason why people are doing this, and not due to the fact of they were actually using an offensive kind of, you know, gesture or whatever to people. I think they genuinely just kind of want to be angry at something, which I think is absolutely insane, right? If you said, so when women have their hands like this, no matter what it is, them saying you have a small dick, I guess the offended man, children have tiny dicks, poor babies. Said, God forbid you get caught having to write your name. Oh boy. Yeah, imagine using a pencil in Korea must be like, oh God, Christ, you don't want to do that. Obviously they say, this is crazy to me. I get it, I guess, but as you said, you'll see it everywhere and everything if you go out of your way to look for it. And they say, yep, in Nikke's instance, it was merely hand placement on a blanket or Anissa's placement on her waist. Let's just be real, lol. So I think it's pretty crazy how many people dig right in KR on this because of the Megalia radical feminist group. So this is like if any word that even sounded similar to the M word had to be changed globally. The fact that even Apple had to suffer from the coincidences like this suck. And yeah, as you can see here, here is some of the other. Yeah, you got like Apple Japan. I'm assuming this is like regular Apple. And then this is the one that they released in Korea, I'm assuming. And obviously, yeah, it's someone holding the phone. But obviously they found that offensive, which I think is crazy. Said, wait, they had to remove it from the Apple presentation thumbnail. Is that genuinely legit? And yeah, it seems like that was the case, right? And yeah, there's been more people saying anyone that complains about this has a huge small PP energy. That said, these are really weird hand finger positions. So I almost want to say it's on purpose here for once, which I think is hilarious. So the only thing about the original image I can see that looks awkward is Anissa's hand being a little bit janky. It looks a bit more natural in the revised version. Rappy's hand looks completely fine as it was. It's not even the same gesture they get mad about. She's just gripping the bed. Said if all you have is a hammer, everything will look like a nail. Which, yeah, I think, you know, is 100% true. And, you know, obviously it said Megalia was disbanded in 2018. There's only stragglers and copycats left, and the group was never that big to begin with. 99% of the time, the gesture is coincidental. It's the same as the 4B movement. It's massively overblown. These are niche online movements with not much IRL motion, which is true. You know, a lot of people, if you don't know, are getting offended over this by groups like that people are mentioning in the comments that were using symbols like that to kind of, you know, spread hatred towards men and stuff. Which, again, I can totally understand, obviously, you know, as a man, right? I think, you know, that is obviously terrible, right? But at the same time, you've got to understand that many people outside of the country aren't going to know about this. A lot of people don't get offended by this at all, right? And, you know, it's just one of these things where, you know, it's not really that big of a deal, right? Obviously, this was the kind of thing that they put out whenever they received the reports on the artwork as well. Which, yeah, I just think it's crazy because I think Nikke is a great game. I think, you know, they do a good job. But I think people getting angry over this and also over the Stella Sora one and any other one as well with Wuthering Waves and stuff. We covered that a while ago. I think it's crazy. And yeah, I mean, it just gets even crazier, you know, over time. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, go to GameSubs, use my code Kazoo, get 10% off. Again, they got a ton of really cool stuff over there. Definitely recommend checking it out. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. See ya.